Hi, this is Adam Shoemaker, Rector here at St. Stephen's Episcopal Church in downtown Charleston, back for another edition of Rector's Corner. And I'm very happy today to have with us our visiting Bishop, Henry Parsley, who has been assisting us in the Diocese of South Carolina as we continue to move forward with our search for a diocesan bishop. And given that we just found out who our nominees are for bishop, I thought it would be helpful to have a chance to talk to Bishop Parsley about the role of a bishop and some basic questions about Episcopal leadership. So thank you very much, Bishop Parsley, for being on. And I wonder if we could just start with titles, because you are our visiting bishop. We've had a provisional bishop when Bishop Adams was here. We're searching for a diocesan bishop. Could you talk a little bit about what all those titles mean?
Thank you, Adam. Greetings to you. I'm glad to be part of your Rector's Corner. I was in the Diocese of South Carolina when St. Stephen's, Ansonboro, was restarted back in the, must have been in the 80s. I can't remember exactly, but it's so wonderful to see the good work you're doing there with your staff and all the people of St. Stephen's. I was ordained in the Diocese of South Carolina, so it's a diocese I love and have cherished over the years. I served in the diocese for 15 years before going to North Carolina and then on to Alabama to be bishop. So I've been a bishop now for almost 25 years, half of my ordained life, which is quite hard to believe. Visiting bishop is an unusual office. It's not actually canonical. It's a special case bishop's role in the time of a diocesan transition. A part-time role, very part-time role, serving as an advisor, pastoral support to the standing committee and various staff and clergy as needed through a period of transition toward electing a new bishop. It's different from any of the other bishop roles, like diocesan and provisional, because it doesn't have jurisdiction, so to speak. I have no canonical authority. My only authority is pastoral, which actually is rather refreshing. I've enjoyed that role. I've always thought the pastoral role was the most important for the ordained anyway. There are basically five kind of bishops: diocesan bishops, coadjutor bishops, suffragan bishops, provisional bishops, and assisting bishops. All are elected except for assisting bishops, which are appointed by a diocesan to help, and a visiting bishop like me, which is really a request of the standing committee to have a person to help. If diocesan bishops, the ones we know the most are diocesan bishops, if they have what we call oversight, which is actually what the word episcopacy means, for which we get Episcopal. If they have oversight, then I think a visiting bishop has what I would call beside sight, coming along beside a diocese to help in a transition as an Episcopal presence, as an advisor, as a supporter, as someone who can ordain and confirm when requested, and do other Episcopal ministries if needed during the transition period. Obviously, the COVID pandemic has impacted my role dramatically, and what was already a limited role became even more limited. It has been reduced mostly to Zoom conversations and meetings and work done over the internet. But it's been quite valuable, and I'm very glad to be part of it.
And so can you briefly talk a little bit about diocesan bishop, suffragan bishop, what those roles are?
Diocesan bishops are the chief bishop of a diocese, given oversight and jurisdiction for the group of churches we call a diocese, elected by the convention of the diocese. Coadjutor bishop is also elected by the convention of a diocese. in order to succeed the diocesan bishop when he or she retires. And a coadjutor can only last for, I think it's 2 years canonically now, before becoming the diocesan bishop automatically. Suffragan bishops are elected by the convention to assist a diocesan bishop, but not to succeed. You may have heard the old joke in the church that when the coadjutor sees the diocesan bishop in the morning, he says, "Bishop, how are you feeling?" And the suffragan says, "Bishop, how can I help you today?" Old joke. Assisting bishops serve at the request of a diocesan bishop, and only in the terms of a contract arrangement. Visiting bishops serve same way through contractual arrangement with a standing committee.
And provisional?
Provisional bishops are elected by the convention and given full authority, but only for a set period of time. Unlike a diocesan bishop that has open tenure, a provisional bishop has a limited agreed upon tenure. I was a provisional bishop in Easton, Maryland for exactly 2 years. I told them that was all I could do, and it turned out to be just the right timing for the diocese.
Bishop, given that our diocese is in a bishop search, could you speak a little bit about the significance of bishops in the Episcopal Church, symbolically and in practice, and what bishops' relationship is in practice to congregations?
Well, that's a wonderful question, and one that we could spend an hour or more talking about. The bishop's role is a wonderful ancient role in the life of the church to provide pastoral oversight for the church, sacramental and theological leadership for the church, and helping the church to order its life liturgically, sacramentally, pastorally, and administratively. The best place to really grasp what bishops mean is to look at the ordinal in the prayer book for the ordination service of a bishop, which describes beautifully and richly all the different facets of a bishop's work. It uses some important phrases like to continue the ministry of the apostles, to be a guardian of the faith, unity and discipline of the church, to carry on the apostolic succession and the work of leading, empowering, supervising, and uniting the church. It accentuates the role of pastor to the clergy and people of a diocese, emphasizing that word pastor, which relates to the image of shepherd, with a flock of sheep holding a staff, and being in their midst, helping them move forward to find good pasture, still waters for drinking, helping them find their way, basically loving and caring that the flock will flourish and be healthy and productive. That's the role that I think the bishop has. That involves lots of different functions. It involves praying for the diocese on a daily and even more frequent basis, praying for the clergy by name. It involves gathering the clergy together for counsel and for learning. We used to have quarterly clergy days in Alabama where I would gather with all the clergy, the priests and deacons, and we would teach each other and learn from each other and share our joys and sometimes our struggles. It was a very important time to build up the clergy community. The bishop is also called to be a teacher and a theologian. I always thought that role was one of the most valuable roles that I had as a bishop, to continue to teach the faith and the gospel, to nourish the clergy, to be part of the councils of the church, like the House of Bishops and the provincial bishops, where we often write notes and letters to the church and pass resolutions for the church. The other role I would accentuate is that of unity. The bishop is symbolic of the church's unity, sort of standing in the middle of the church, bringing all the different sides and points of view and orientations of the church together as a whole. Unity does not mean uniformity.
Mhm.
Unity means being together with all of our differences and all of our diversity. And the bishop is called to do that. One of my favorite stories that I love to tell is when I was meeting with the House of Bishops in New Orleans once. And it was oddly a time when the ballroom where we met got colder and colder because the air conditioning wasn't functioning right. And some ladies had sent prayer shawls down to the meeting to wrap the bishops in prayer. Most of us are old guys at that time, and not many prayer shawls were being used until it got colder and colder, and more people wrapped themselves up in these beautiful, colorful shawls. And during a coffee break, I heard a couple of tourists in the lobby speaking by the elevator, and one said, "Who are all these people?" And the other one said, "I don't know, it must be a knitting convention." And that's really a true story. I'm not making that up.
That's great.
And I always loved it because I think the bishop's role is to knit together
Mm.
the body of Christ and to be that symbolic unifier of the flock. The only other thing I would say is that there's the role of ordinary, which is an ancient word for the bishop's role to order the diocese administratively, to make sure that all the different groups and committees are functioning properly. And that's what oversight is all about, making sure the prayer book is used fully and properly and the canons are observed, to order the diocese. Ordering is part of loving, helping the diocese be healthy and strong because it's well ordered. And then finally, one more thing, which is to raise up people for the ordained ministry, to go through discernment processes with individuals and groups to help people find their vocation, and to support the ministry of the laity in its fullness so that all people can give their gifts for ministry, whether ordained or lay.
It's a lot.
There's a lot.
A lot on the plate of any bishop. Could you talk a little bit about the day-to-day life of a diocesan bishop? What does it look like? What does the rhythm of a weekly schedule look like for a diocesan bishop?
Yeah. The weekly rhythm of a bishop is very diverse, and it's hard to say one week is like another week. The reason for that is that the bishop's role is spread out over a big geographical area. Bishops spend a lot of time driving to meetings, driving to occasions of worship, Sunday visitations, confirmations, ordinations, celebrations of new ministry, anniversaries, dedications, and almost all of those are on the road, in addition to meetings of bishops out of the diocese all over the country, as well as sometimes all over the world. And so bishops log a lot of car time and air time, making connections with all the different people who we serve. The bishop, I think, begins every day with prayer, wherever he or she might be, which is the most important part of the day, to begin in communion with Christ and with the body of Christ in prayer. Oftentimes that'll be followed by doing some correspondence, by writing letters or emails, attending meetings of commissions, committees, individual meetings with clergy who have questions or need pastoral support, planning a visitation on Sunday by talking to the rector to see what's going on in that parish, and making plans for the visit, for the worship, and for a teaching occasion or a meeting with the vestry, and that sort of thing. Supporting the staff is one of the bishop's very important roles, and almost every day in the office is spent with staff, individually or together, planning, supporting, strategizing. So it's an interesting rhythm of meetings, travel, prayer, pastoral care, strategic planning, staff support, and really trying to make sure that the congregations flourish and that the diocesan structures are working and that the bishop is in touch with as many people and as many different parts of the church as possible.
And is it true, Bishop, usually most Sundays or perhaps most Sundays, excluding the summer months, the bishop is visiting congregations in the diocese?
In Alabama, we visited 10 months of the year, 2 weeks off at Christmas and vacation weeks, and then weeks away at bishops' meetings. That accounted for the other 2 months. But we visited at least one parish every Sunday for 10 months a year, sometimes 2 and sometimes again during the week, depending again on the schedules and needs of the parish. I think probably if you ask any bishop, he or she will say their favorite part of being a bishop is congregational visits, because that way you're in the midst of the people, you get to see people and know people all over the diocese. And I'm a very relational kind of person, so I love those times of being with people. And I used to stay as long as I could in many cases, having coffee, having lunch, meeting with the vestry, spending time with the clergy. Those are very special times. And I think you asked earlier about the role with congregations. Sometimes the bishop is thought of working more with the clergy than with congregations directly, because the parish priests like you do the congregational work primarily. And I think bishops are careful not to get in the way of local rectors and priests in charge. At the same time, people need to know their bishop a little bit and have a relationship with the bishop, and know that they're part of a greater whole. I personally love our diocesan organization because it reminds us of the fullness of the church. You know, we have high church churches, we have low church churches, we have broad church churches, we have liberals, conservatives, Democrats, Republicans, you know, all manner of diversity that make this church up. And as a diocese, we see that when we gather. Every year, the Diocesan Convention is a time when we see the whole church in its beautiful fullness, and the bishop gets to bring that together and help that be meaningful.
Yeah, I always think it's a great gift for individual parishes to be reminded that they are part of a greater whole. It can be encouraging and inspiring for ministry in a local context.
And it's so easy just to sort of see your own congregation and think that's the whole church.
Right.
I didn't mention in talking about visitations, but one of the things the bishop obviously does is confirm and receive and reaffirm people sacramentally. And that's extremely meaningful, to confirm younger people and older people who are affirming their Christian faith in the Episcopal Church by the laying on of hands. Deeply meaningful, those moments in a bishop's ministry.
Yeah, and I think those are very personal moments for people in the pews. I certainly can remember the name of the bishop who confirmed me in the Diocese of Long Island, and you carry that memory with you forward into wherever God calls you.
Yes, I agree. I remember mine too.
I wonder if you have anything else to add on the topic of bishops as we carry forward our search process now that we have our bishop slate of nominees?
Well, South Carolina is in an exciting moment where for the first time in a number of years, the diocese is able to elect a diocesan bishop. The years since the schism in the diocese have been challenging ones, with 2 provisional bishops, and now a period with the standing committee being ecclesiastical authority and a visiting bishop. And now you have a slate of persons to consider as your next 15th bishop in the Diocese of South Carolina. I think it'll be wonderful for the diocese to have a full-time diocesan bishop again as it moves forward in mission and unity, to build up the church, to be a reconciling force, hopefully to welcome some people back to the Episcopal Church that may have wandered off during this time of a little confusion and separation. I think one of the bishop's roles is to be a reconciler, recognizing that we get at odds with each other and there are conflicts in the church, and the bishop's job is to be one who brings people back together. And my hope for South Carolina would be that this would be a time of bringing lots of different parts back together into the wholeness that God means for the church. I think it's important for your new bishop to be a unifier and a reconciler, and also somebody who has the administrative skills to build up the church. It's going to be exciting to see some of the churches being reformed with new rectors, and whoever comes needs to be one who can bring in some new clergy and raise up some new clergy to rebuild the diocese. Of course, the litigation is still a question mark, so we don't know exactly what the shape of the diocese will be. But even as the diocese is, it's got enormous strengths, wonderful clergy, wonderful churches, some small congregations just beginning again, and others more settled and more traditional and more established. But it's an exciting time. I think it's probably one of the places in the Episcopal Church that would be the most exciting ministry for a new bishop. And so I'm excited for you. The only other thing I would say would be that that earlier comment about the bishop as a focus of unity. I think your new bishop, whoever he or she may be, will have a particular important role in that respect, because it has been a time when Episcopal leadership has been kind of scarce in the diocese. Provisional bishops have been part-time, and they've been important. Visiting bishop even more part-time. Now you'll have a full-time bishop to be able to really do so many things pastorally and as a teacher and leader, to really renew the diocese in mission and help rebuild and strengthen the people and the clergy. An exciting, challenging time for whoever is elected.
Yeah, I agree. It is an exciting time, a promising time. It certainly felt that way to me when I arrived at St. Stephen's nearly 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And we'll look forward to the electing convention, which for those listening in will be May the 1st at Grace Church Cathedral. Bishop, I really appreciate your time and your prayerful presence and the support you've given. And at St. Stephen's, we very much appreciate your willingness to come down to Bowen's Island to ordain our Associate Rector, Laura Rizek, a priest in December. That was a really fun opportunity.
Laura's ordination was such a joy, and one of the most memorable ordinations of my ministry as a bishop. Being there together with you and the people of St. Stephen's, and Laura and her family by the water at Bowen's Island, a place where I've eaten many an oyster and fried shrimp over the years. It was quite unforgettable. And I think y'all are a great team at St. Stephen's. I wanted to add a quotation, if I might. It's a quotation from St. Augustine, which I keep on my wall. St. Augustine said this: "For you I am a bishop, but with you I am a Christian. One is an office accepted, the other is a gift received. One is danger, the other is safety. If I'm happier to be redeemed with you than to be placed over you, then I shall, as the Lord commanded, be more fully your servant. Those words gather up for me the meaning of being a servant leader as a bishop, which is what your new bishop is called to be, I believe, and I hope will be for the Diocese of South Carolina.
Well, thank you very much, Bishop. I think those are wonderful words to close on. For those listening in, please do visit scbishopsearch.org to learn more about our bishop nominees and to see their responses to some essay questions. And stay tuned for opportunities just after Easter to have conversations with these nominees and to learn more about them. And please do pray for them, their families, communities, and for our diocese. Again, thank you so much, Bishop. Appreciate it. And we'll be back with another episode of Rector's Corner in a couple of weeks. Take care, everybody.